We are back on MorningLine. Thanks for joining us. We're talking national, international politics with Professor Marc Schwerdt from over at Lipscomb University. And
thank you.
All right, listen, I was just thinking during the commercial break, if I had a choice to go anywhere in the world and I knew I could be safe, and I'm not talking about for a vacation, but just because I think it would be fascinating, it would be North Korea. Not because I think I'm going to see anything that's going to be luxurious and fun and all that. I'm just fascinated by the people and to see what really goes on behind the scenes there, and the fact that it seems like they're just probably stuck in time, and the folks there don't even know what the rest of the world is like. I'm fascinated by that.
Well, there's two aspects to that. One, the aspect of control. The level of control is certainly there.
Yeah.
That you have this construction of their society is such that it is the hermit kingdom, that's the historical name, that it is cut off from the rest of the world, that's, like you say, captured in time. But at the same time, there's been a concerted effort from places like the United States, through Voice of America kind of broadcast.
Well, yeah, now social media
and social
computers,
and the South Koreans have for years done things like send over VHS tapes from back in the 80s. Or, nowadays they'll send things like, phones and drives, USB ports and all those kinds of things. And there's a higher level of awareness of the rest of the world.
You just wonder if there's an underground,
just from looking at it.
You think there's an underground revolutionary there that's learning? And they have to be real quiet or they're all dead. But I mean, that know about this. Because if you live there and you see how the rest of the world lives, and then you look at how you're living under this despot, you're like, what the heck? But I mean, I'm just wondering, could they see the things in the computers and the feeds and things like this and go, gosh, something's got to change?
Well, the thing is, the people who are probably the most aware of it are the ones who have the most to gain from keeping things the way they are.
Right.
And so I think certainly if the Kim Jong-un's regime fell, in a sense, and there was reform and all this kind of thing, what you'd see is a transition to a type of regime that would be, it wouldn't be an open democracy. Essentially what you have is the same elite would largely stay in place. There'd be those who wouldn't be able to transition over because they would either be part of Kim Jong-un's, they were too close to him, so they got to get rid of him, or they have to transition over. I mean, you saw the same thing with like Germany and Japan after World War II. You had to keep a lot of those people in place, regardless of their cooperation with the previous regime. And so that's the kind of thing I would assume, as opposed to this, a revolutionary, rising up in the streets kind of situation.
Yeah, that's probably not going to happen. Let's take a call or two. We'll go to start off with, I think, Brian. Good morning, Brian.
Oh, hey.
Hey.
Just feeding Buddy. Hey, listen, there's been a lot of parallels. I've been telling people this for years, and you know that, Nick. I've always said that there's a lot of parallels with this between West and East Germany and how we just sort of waited them out. But this guy's a little more extreme. And the thing is, North Korea, that's where most of the mountainous part of the country is. There's not a lot of place to raise crops. So, but if they could have enough to raise crops, if they concentrated all their crops on just beans and rice and stuff, they could probably do it. And if they had, not a goofball head guy in office. So the thing is, what's going to happen is, I've been talking to my Korean shop owner around the country, and it's going to happen. I told them about 4 years now, exactly what's going to happen now is what happened in Germany. They're going to reunite, and then they're going to have a special 10% tax for 10 years, and all that 10% tax on anything you buy in a store, anything, the Korean people, visitors, tourists, is going to go straight to the reconstruction of Korea. But what's going to happen to Kim Jong-un, you say? Well, he's going to sort of just go away. Nobody's going to kill him or nothing. He may die.
That would be nice if he just disappeared. The thing is, all right, he uses, Germany as an example. Is there anything, and it seems like some relations have thawed between North and South Korea, but I mean, is anyone talking about a reunification there?
Yeah, they are.
I mean, you think that's a possibility?
Oh, yeah. I mean, now on his schedule, I'm a little bit probably skeptical about that.
Because what would happen to Kim Jong-un if they reunified? He's not going to just go away.
No, and see, that's the thing. There's a difference between the regime survival of Kim Jong-un and the survival of North Korea. Okay, those are two different things. He unites them as the same thing. Because he considers himself to be, essential to
Right. So how would it work then if they unify?
Well, I mean, I think Kim Jong-un would have to go away.
You mean someone would have to kill him?
Well, or maybe he could figure out an exile situation, or maybe there's a way that he could be arrested from a coup within. Maybe that section of the elite of North Korea, make a deal with South Korea, because they've got some sort of open channels at some point where somebody takes it upon themselves. The key there is that who controls the army.
Those are the ones that are really in charge, right?
Well, they're the ones who are largely in charge. There's still party officials and that kind of thing. They're all kind of mixed in there together, and it's family. So it's as much about a dynasty as it is about and the extended family. So it's a little bit of a feudal situation mixed with a modern military dictatorship autocracy, and but a reunification, I think, is kind of in there because but there's two things that kind of stand in the way. One is this idea of, will Kim give up the reins of power, and would the North Korean elite sort of see it as in their benefit to reunify, because they would lose their position, relatively speaking, as well, but they could benefit because all that aid's going to go through their fingers before it gets down into the rest of the country. With East Germany as a parallel, I mean, there's something there because the Soviet Union was East Germany's thing, but the Soviet Union fell. Here, China has not fallen. China, do they want a reunified Korea? Because South Korea on its own is, the 12th largest economy in the world.
Is it?
It's, shows all sorts of benefits of being an open society, of, the benefits of capitalism, the benefits of having a democracy, all those kinds of things. Do you want that now with twice the population? You should see them bump up to where now maybe is Korea, the same level of success as like a Japan. And now you've got a capable Japan, a capable Korea, as opposed to China, who's saying, you know what, I've got to deal with Japan and the South Korea, but I don't want to reunify Korea. And that's probably your biggest obstacle to a reunification that takes place in any sort of short time period, which I'm saying is a decade.
Yeah, okay. A decade would be that period. Let's go to Joe. Joe, good morning.
Good morning, Nick.
Hey, Joe.
I'm just listening to you and the professor talk. I think the professor is spot on his what he thinks about China. I mean, it's very easy to understand that China, I mean not China, but North Korea is military runs the show, and the people are just there, and people's the ones suffering over there. Because the military is spending all the money on the military, so I think he's got that down right. It's one thing that came out of this. Of course, everybody knows that China's is that's probably the meeting he had with China that they probably put a little bug in his ear what he needed to do, and like it or not, he's going to have to do it. But one of the things that came out that was interesting to me, they said when they were talking about where they would have the meeting at, that they didn't know for sure, but they said that North Korea didn't even have an airplane that would make the distance to where they would have the meeting. So that's what they're doing. They don't. They just spending the money on the military and nuclear whatever they're doing. So. The professor's got it. He's got it figured out.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Thank you.
I don't know. Is that true? I mean, we know that Kim Jong-un went to South Korea in that big armored, fancy-looking train. Sure. But I mean, I can't imagine they don't have a plane that he could fly on. And they're talking about, among others, Stockholm, Sweden is a possibility.
Yeah, I mean, what you're talking about there is, does North Korea have essentially a plane that can reach that kind of distance? I don't know if they do or not.
Really?
Well, I mean, again, I don't know.
I know, we don't know, but
what they do have are, they've got jet fighters.
They got jet fighters.
But you can't take that.
No. So this meeting's not going to happen.
10,000 miles.
The president of the United States is not going to North Korea. It's not going to happen there. It's going to be at a neutral site.
Yeah, they're going to make it a neutral site. There's no way that Trump would go to North Korea, I don't think.
Mike Pompeo did go to North Korea to meet with him.
Yes, he did.
All right, so it'll have to be a neutral site. And but it'll have to take into account, can Kim Jong-un get there? Maybe we send a plane to pick him up.
Yeah, I mean, there's neutral countries that could supply a plane. I don't think that's
right.
I think this gets caught up in the optics of everything, which everybody wants to come to this in the strongest position possible. So does North Korea, in going on maybe taking somebody else's charity, if you will, do they look like they are a charity case? That way, that gives them a weak position. You know, the way. If you don't look respectable, do people respect you, kind of thinking. And if he wants to come from a position of strength, is that really something he wants to take advantage of? You know, if he can't take a Chinese plane, because that would emphasize his dependence on China.
Right.
He can't take a Korean plane, a Republic of Korea plane, because that would give the same situation, that we are inferior to this other country. An American plane obviously is out of the question. Is there a neutral country that could provide some sort of transport? And I'm not really harping on this as the key part of it, but it's just that those are the kind of considerations that are going to be talked about over the next 6 weeks to establish all the little details. Like, you know, who arrives first.
I see.
You know, all the protocol that goes into it, because, like you say, this is a historic occasion, and everybody wants it to be successful. For it to be successful, there's a lot of behind-the-scenes negotiating and sort of assertions and things like that that will take place to where everybody's going to try to like put themselves into an advantageous position.
Makes sense. Let's take a break on that note. We've got more calls. If you're on hold today, we'll get to you as soon as we come back right after this.
The Storm 5